Coming your way on Art Rocks, a self-taught painter garners high praise in his Pointe, Coupee Parish home.
I paint in oils, acrylics, and pastels.
Videos lauded for their worldly views.
We started off shooting locally, and then it was thought of maybe expanding the content to larger parts of the world.
Traditional Native American beading.
I often first start with the essence of the piece.
And 150-something-year-old paintings still moving viewers' emotions. These stories are up next on Art Rocks.
West Baton Rouge Museum is proud to provide local support for this program on LPB, offering diverse exhibitions throughout the year and programs that showcase art, history, music, and more. West Baton Rouge Museum, culture cultivated.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Art Rocks with me, James Fox Smith from Country Roads Magazine. Let's begin by crossing the Mississippi to New Roads in Pointe Coupee Parish. That's where Norman Lecoq was raised, drawing and painting every chance he had. There was less time for paint or pen once Lecoq grew up and became an accomplished welder, a career that took him to Houston, where he continued to paint as a hobby. Lecoq chose to return to Louisiana when he didn't feel his aging mother could live alone any longer. So now, back in his boyhood home, Lecoq's passion for creating art burns as bright as ever. Let's take a look.
I painted an old era lantern, and you can see the water hit the glass, but there's a heart shape on the outskirts of the glass where somebody had either made a heart. I have two marbles right by that lantern. When I was a kid, I used to play with marbles. When the lights would go off, we would use those old lanterns to light so we'd be able to see. That's how I came to the concept of painting that one. It's a beautiful painting, real detail. I have a version of The Old Man in the Sea. This painting is an oil. It's my depiction of Ernest Hemingway picture of Old Man in the Sea. It just was spectacular. The detail I have with the swordfish, and he's fighting it in the water. I have a flying fish on the side. You look various details, the line broke. He has a spear ready to throb into the swordfish. That painting is one of my favorites. It's the colors, the tones, the little boat he's in. It's really showing a lot of detail. This is kind of mind-boggling. It's a picture of a goldfish. Another thing, I had goldfish when I was a kid. And I'm always into different things with art, just to see whether or not it would work or how it would work. The flame is not a flame of fire, but it's a flame of water. And the fish is trying to survive. It's surviving through what was flames, but now it's water. But you see, the candle is melting. But again, you have different keys on a doorknob, in a handle, a block of wood. So with that part, you have different keys to open different sides of the door. Which key or which knob you're going to use to open what door you want open for yourself. So that one is kind of different. It's kind of deep. Water is one of the easiest things now for me to do. Bruce Lee's saying, be like water. It flows. It's going to take a path. And I just follow the contour of the shape that I have. And I just let it flow. White in various tones. And that's it. I have another painting in there right now I'm working on. This is oils, and that one is pastels, and you can see that almost identical. They look the same, looks like water. My favorite subject matter are people and animals. Everyone gonna have a particular type of facial expression, features, skin tone, hair tone, and textures. Same with animals. Every animal is going to be slightly different. They may be the same species, but they're going to be slightly different, just as us. We all different. We're the same species, but each one of us is totally different. And that's where the beauty come in and everything. It's kind of hard to please people. You have to know exactly what they want. That's why you have to interview them. Where's this picture going? What you using it for? Is it for personal use, just you, or it's a gift? I usually get 3 or 4 photographs from that person. I review the best photographs they have and find out if that's what they want. And plenty of people, if they don't have jewelry on, they may request a particular type of necklace that's going to cost extra because I have to research, and then they have to present me with what type of necklace they want. I can add anything on. Then there's the background. You have to have different things to go with the picture itself and the background to make everything unison to come together as a whole. Always get your deposit. Always have to get a deposit. I paint in oils, acrylics, and pastels. I love all the mediums, but oils seem to be my favorite, and pastels the next, and then there's acrylics. I enjoy the oils because of the resin and the resolutions you can get with creating your pictures and everything else too. But the pastels, it's much quicker than oils. And when I do pastels, it's immediately gratitude. You can see everything coming to life right then and there. Oils, you gotta wait a little bit, let it dry, come back, different layers. And do the same type of layer effects, but with pastels, it works quicker. Oil painting is always more elite than acrylics and pastels because of the value of the oils. It's much more expensive too, but a lot of people won't have that kind of money at the time, so they resort to pastels when they can kind of get about the same resolution as the oils with less price. I started painting about the age of 10. It wasn't a painting, it was an actual drawing. It was of a Batmobile, and I sold that for the amount of 25 cents back then at St. Augustine School, and I never stopped since then. It's mainly self-taught. I had teachers. I went to a small college in Baton Rouge by the name of Commercial College. I got there, I presented what I had to paint, draw, sketch, and at the time I was a young kid. They had me actually teaching some of the classes, more or less. And then my talent got better and better. The more I did, I was learning more. And that's how I escalate to do different paintings like this you see right here. I look at the various tones, how the light is actually hitting the subject, where it's going to be less tones combined with more. And then the light hitting off a subject, how it's going to reflect on that subject and affect the colors that surround that subject itself. I enjoy teaching. I get a lot from teaching people, students, young and old. I teach STEM academies and have recent art classes where I teach various students. I get some commission work from some of the displays that I have. And doing the YouTube channels, they're pretty fun. I film myself actually in high speed, doing several different types of art, mainly pastels. I can do the pastels real quick. Sometimes I don't even have to speed it up. Sometimes I may do an oil and I talk about roadmaps. I'm always talking about roadmaps. You have to know where you're going to get where you want to get to. And the same with every painting. Have a starting point, lay it out, start to finish.
Fine art delivers beauty and inspiration to creator and viewer alike. So here are some of our picks for notable exhibits coming up soon at museums and galleries in our part of the world. For more about these and lots more events in the arts, visit lpb.org/artrocks. There you'll find links to every episode of this program. So to see or share any segment again, visit lpb.org/artrocks. You can also find only the Louisiana segments on LPB's YouTube page. Now we're off to the Peppermill Resort properties in Reno, Nevada. As if the accommodations were not enough, guests can also choose to view IMAX scale video of breathtaking scenery taken from all around the world. Vast video screens deliver inspiring footage of landscapes, culture and wildlife from all 7 continents. So here we go.
Essentially, Windows of the World is taking video images and presenting them like still images. Finding beautiful shots that you normally would shoot a photo with, but add the motion of video. A photo is an instant in time. Windows of the World is moments in time. We started off shooting locally. And then it was thought of maybe expanding the content to larger parts of the world. And that actually happened when the owner of the pepper mill were considering putting in an aquarium. The aquarium that they were talking about putting in was a big deal. It was going to cost them $1 million, and it was going to cost them 80 grand a year in maintenance. The owners came to me and they said, "Well, Joe, do you think you can do that with your cameras?" And I said, yeah. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but I said, I think I can. We found a way to get those red cameras underwater, and we went to a Belize, and we shot underwater, and it became a big success. And then we started traveling all over. I've been to hundreds of countries. I don't know how many, but from Mount Everest to Antarctica to all over Alaska, China, Vietnam, Thailand, New Zealand, Australia, India. The key to the success of this is having as much content as you possibly can and playing it completely random. Right now we have over 50,000 different images, and we play it in about a half a dozen formats. That's the power of it, because you never know what's coming next, and then you just add content to it. You see all the shots, but also now you're seeing new ones on occasion. And by the time you get to over 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 images, it just becomes this library, this plethora of content that just, you never know what's going to show up next. This experience with traveling with Windows of the World and creating these images allow me to bump into different cultures that I wouldn't have expected. We're literally working in these countries. We're not tourists, but more importantly, the people and cultures that we've experienced really are the true treasures that we take home from these trips. We have 3 mountain gorilla treks scheduled in Rwanda. We were hiking way up in the mountains, and we went up there. We get to the very top, and you get 1 hour with these gorillas. This group of gorillas, about 20 gorillas, a family of them, is right behind the tree. You know, as soon as you walk through that little canopy, that's where they're all kind of hanging out. You know, you don't want to, they don't let you bother them too much. Well, we got there, and so you get enough time to you have to build your cameras again because they're all in backpacks. You get all ready, okay, bam, they let you go there, and the clock starts ticking. The 1 hour. We go there, and oh, there's one, and it looked like a little chimpanzee. It was a young one or a mother. They're just walking through, but they're just walking away, and all I was getting is their butts. All I saw was their butts, and I was starting to worry a little bit. There was one, the big patriarch of the whole family, the big silverback, was hanging in a big heavy kind of tree in the back, and I had my big $50,000 lens zeroed in on him, but the leaves were in front of him. I didn't get a straight shot. I just had his legs kind of hanging off and everything. Of course, on wild animals, you want them to look into the camera lens. Well, I had this thing focused up, and I wasn't getting anything. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna get it focused right on his eyes. I can tell where his eyes were, and I'm gonna hit record. And if somehow he would expose himself, I would have that National Geographic shot that you just dream of. I hit record, and like it was on cue, he opened up and exposed his face looking right into the camera. My hair stood up like this, and I pinched myself and double checked that my record light was on, and I started crying inside. And I think he felt that. I just felt this joy and this like exultation of getting this incredible creature on film. I love walking through the pepper mill and seeing people react to these screens. I mean, just the other day I saw a couple and they were kind of holding hands and looking and pointing, and they were saying, you know, remember my sister was there. But what a lot of people are doing when they're watching these screens is they're taking selfies of themselves with these screens in the background. But it's so funny, you can have a $5 million action sequence that costs to produce, and you can have that playing at the pepper mill and people will walk right by it. But if they walk by a shot of a river or a butterfly that kind of floats down, or a glance of a mountain gorilla, and you see the title and it's from Rwanda and it's a real thing, it's not a zoo animal, it's a real wild animal, they'll stop and look at it and it'll touch and move them more than anything else. One of the most important things to me when I'm shooting is to find that subject and light that is timeless. Shoot something that you normally don't see. It isn't about having the perfect picture. These don't have to be planet Earth, hugely high budget shots. You just have to feel something when you're shooting this content. If the photographer or cinematographer feels something when they're shooting a shot, it will rub off and the audience will feel that.
Staying in Nevada, Teresa Melendez practices the craft of Native American beadwork, a skill that she began learning at the tender age of 15. Melendez's work has garnered acclaim for its eye-catching designs filled with color and cultural significance. Let's learn more about her technique and her vision.
My favorite form of Indigenous artwork is beadwork. I really enjoy beading. I find it relaxing. I enjoy thinking about the designs and the type of materials that I want to use, the look that I want to create. I also really enjoy making beadwork because it's functional artwork. Beadwork is a form of traditional Native American artwork. So anywhere around the country, as you visit different tribal nations, you'll see different styles of beadwork. I've been making beadwork since I was about 15. And usually when I design beadwork and I create beadwork, it's for use for cultural events or ceremonies or powwows. So I'm a powwow dancer, I'm a fancy shawl dancer. I like to dance jingle and traditional from time to time too. But my kids and I, we powwow dance, and so a lot of the beadwork that I make is for our powwow outfits or our regalia. So when I'm coming up with beadwork designs, I often first start with the essence of the piece. So I'm really thinking about the person that I'm designing for, and then the use of the final product and the look that I want to create. I like to lay everything out on graph paper, and then I'll translate that paper to material, and I'll sew it down to the material so that I have a pattern to work with, and then to start beading. Beadwork is incredibly time consuming. As you look at these different beaded pieces, you know that each one of those beads was hand sewn on. Different artists will have their own techniques, and so I like to put on 4 beads and then go back through 2. Every single bead is touched by that artist at least once, but sometimes multiple times, depending how they tack it down. And so the larger pieces, they could have hundreds of hours of man time. I would say one of my favorite parts about beading is watching the piece come together, because you have this vision, and a lot of times your vision is pretty true to the final product, but sometimes it's not. And so it's fun watching the piece come together, but actually seeing the colors come together and the designs come together. It's really exciting, and it provides me a lot of motivation, because I'll be like, 2 more hours and I can have this piece complete, and I can finally see what it's going to look like. When I make beadwork, I make it for really specific purposes. So my husband and I got married about 7 years ago. I wore a traditional woodland outfit for our wedding, and then my husband wore a traditional Paiute outfit for the weddings, and then our daughters, they wore some beaded pieces also. My 14-year-old, her name is Siabi, which means wild rose, and so you'll see in those pieces that there's an image of a rose, and the Pasitava, our little one, her name is Wild Iris, and so there's an iris beaded into her hair ties. And then in my bandolier bag, there's several different flowers that are beaded in that. There's a flower that represents me, my favorite flower, and then my husband's favorite flower. And there's a hummingbird, which symbolizes love. And then going up the straps are the flowers of our kids. So Bishopi, his name is Red Earth. I beaded a red star-like flower for him. Well, one of the pieces I brought was the medallion I made when I graduated with my bachelor's degree. I went to Michigan State University. The medallion's in the shape of the Spartan S with a little sash across, with the abbreviation SLC for sociology, and then the year I graduated, because I graduated with a bachelor's degree in sociology. So it's common in Indigenous artwork to see things like that are symbols that are very specific to the individual or specific to that ceremony. All of my beadwork that I create has a lot of symbolism. It feels good to wear our traditional artwork because I know it comes from a special place. I know that there's a lot of meaning behind the pieces, but I also think it's important as Americans that we see the Indigenous people who live here and who've always lived here. Here in Nevada, there are 27 federally recognized tribes. That's a lot of tribes. That's a lot of tribes. Most states don't have 27 federally recognized tribes. Sometimes when we think about Indigenous cultures or Indigenous arts, we think about them as history, something that's in the past and something that's not current. There's all kinds of beautiful work that's being done by artists around the country where they're capitalizing on contemporary materials, themes. It's beautiful to see art evolving, even Indigenous art, because what's Indigenous is also contemporary.
Many students of art will be familiar with the works of Hans Hofmann. Born in Germany in 1880, Hoffman moved to the United States in 1932, where he became an influential early figure in the abstract expressionist movement, continuing to paint and to teach fellow artists until his death in 1966. A fervent believer in the spiritual value of art, Hoffman influenced many post-war American avant-garde artists, including Helen Frankenthaler, Nell Blaine, Lee Krasner, Joan Mitchell, Louise Nevelson, and Larry Rivers. So let's visit the Peabody Essex Museum in Massachusetts to see why.
To artist Hans Hofmann, process was as important as painting.
And he's not just using a brush.
No, on this one, I think you can see a palette knife, you can see brush. He may have squeezed pigment directly onto the canvas. Once in a while we find fingerprints.
This is Hoffman's Indian Summer, painted when he was 79, when he was in the midst of an artistic rebirth.
This is an amazing landscape or mindscape of what might be fall colors, this bright orange, intense blue.
In fact, many of the works in this Peabody Essex Museum show, where we find Hoffman exploring the nature of abstraction, were completed toward the end of his life, says curator Lucinda Barnes.
All he did was paint. And the paintings that we're sitting amongst, these are paintings that he made in his 80s. And there's an enormous scale to them. There's enormous energy.
Hoffman was born in Germany in 1880. In Europe, he was a painter and teacher. He was also part of an artistic circle that included Picasso and Matisse that would prove to be hugely impactful.
There were a number of German expats who were in Paris at the time, and they'd kind of hang out at the same bars, and they'd go to the same exhibitions. You see that influence of Picasso and Matisse and Cézanne very clearly.
In the 1930s, Hoffman moved to the United States, escaping Nazi occupation and World War II. Here, he took the teacher track, ultimately in New York and Provincetown, where Hoffman set up a studio and classroom called The Barn.
In that barn, he taught generations of students for over 20 years. He returned there every summer to teach and also recharge his own artistic practice.
Lydia Gordon is a curator with the Peabody Essex Museum, which is putting the focus on Hoffman as an artist. But it's hard to ignore his impact as a teacher, whose students included some of the most well-known artists of the 20th century, including Louise Nevelson, Helen Frankenthaler, and Robert Motherwell.
Hoffman was inspirational as a teacher because he encouraged that individual creative practice. So it actually didn't matter what the end result looked like, but it was how his students got there, how he got there. And you can really see that in his own paintings that we have in this exhibition. They're really full of movement. It's almost as if he was dancing when creating them.
In Provincetown, Hoffman thrived. He'd tapped into an artist community just like in Europe. And then there was the beauty of Cape Cod.
He goes out, and the landscape outside of his own studio, outside of his window, is very evident in the early landscapes that we have. He's very much using those fauves colors, those purples and those yellows to demonstrate the energy. It's the spirituality of nature that he's after.
Many of the rules around painting were moving away from a pictorial, photographic image of the world, and how do we delve deeper into the soul of the artist.
Hoffman closed his Provincetown school in 1957 and began painting full-time for the first time in more than 40 years.
It was a total life commitment.
For much of the next decade, until his death in 1966, he was an unrelenting force, says curator Lucinda Barnes.
The experimentation, I think, in his late paintings was more in the way of pushing the boundaries for himself. You see much more use of dark color and ranges of black and velvety greens, and that's not easy to do.
And that is that for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, you can always see or share episodes of the show at lpb.org/artrocks. And meanwhile, Country Roads Magazine makes a useful resource for discovering thought-provoking coverage of events, the arts, people, places all around the state. So until next week, I've been James Fox Smith, and thanks to you for watching.
West Baton Rouge Museum is proud to provide local support for this program on LPB, offering diverse exhibitions throughout the year and programs that showcase art, history, music, and more. West Baton Rouge Museum, culture cultivated.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.